Yeah, so we're back at the document that we looked at last time, and we looked at this block diagram for the internal structure, and then we have the registers here. And I have to find the registers, you have to find the address lines that the CPU is applying addresses on, such that we can access the registers. And you can see here these black lines that I have sketched in here. They are address lines, and I have just simply followed them to see where they go. And if you zoom in here, you can see after looking at them closely, you can see that they are also inverted. So there are inverters up there. So what's going on here then? So initially it looks like this. If you turn off this helping stuff. So it's not so easy to see. So I have been drawing over this picture to see what's going on. So the first thing you see is this green stuff. The green stuff is doping. So the whole ship is I think it's P substrate. That means that it has an excess of holes, I think. And then if you want to make a transistor, you need a channel, and you need N on each side. Also, that's an excess of negative or electrons. So they dope the material such that you get an excess of electrons. So, and then when you have this gate or the polysilicon material over it, then you can attract I don't remember if it's electrons or holes. Anyway, what you do or what happens is that once you put voltage here, you will attract such that it's no longer NPN, because behind here you have P, because it's a P substrate. So what you do, you make NNN so that you get a channel. So basically you are inverting this material from P to N by applying a voltage here. So I'm not a physicist, so I don't know exactly how this works, but I don't know. But what I do know is that when they're used like switches, then we know what's going on here. So and there's a special transistor. You can see there are many of them here that look like this. Sometimes they look like a little bracket or something, or a flag. Just the way they bent them. So this is something called a depletion node, and a depletion node is basically a transistor like this. However, the transistor is not simply the substrate underneath the gate with an insulating material like oxide to insulate the green part with the red part here, but they have taken some of this green stuff and pulled it such that you can say that it's normally on. So if the voltage on the gate is low or zero, then there's still a channel here. So you have to do the opposite. You have to apply negative voltage to stop it. So what's the point in that? Well, the story is a bit long, but if you see here, NMOS can only pull down? Well, it can pull up, but you can only pull up to say 4 volts if you have 5 volts, because the gate needs 1 volt to turn on though. So, or the gate source needs 1 volt. So therefore you can't pull it all the way up. But this one can do that. So yeah, so this is like a resistor, pull-up resistor, in a very small form factor. But because if you had a actual resistor, you will need a lot of space, like here. So I don't know how much resistance that is, but yeah, it's much more effective. So yeah, so just don't think of this difficult terms and stuff. Just think of it. This one is pulling this large net over here, which snakes inside here, to 5 volt. And then on the other side you have ground, which is this line here. So I have done a lot of work to find out where the ground is and where the 5 volt is and such. Now to this part here is 5 volt if none of these transistors are on. So none of you have to be on, all of them have to be off. And since you are having both address lines in active and negated form, or a positive active and negative active, then you can key. So I think, because this makes sense. So let's say this code here, I have written it here, but let's imagine it's not there. What is the code then? Well, A0, there's a gate on A0, that's the address 0, or the first address line, that's the least significant bit. And if that one is 1, if this here is high, then this transistor is on, and then it will pull down. Therefore you have the wrong key, right? Because this line has to be high for it to be active. So this register select, or this address decoder, which it is actually, has to be high to be active. So none of this can be on. So because if this one is on, then the ground is then pulled in here. Okay, what about A1 then? Well, that's 1, so this one is also on, so that's not good. So A0 must be 0. Okay, I did say wrong there, but anyway, A0 must be 0, because then this gate is off. So therefore I say 0 here. And if A0 is 0, then here's A0 inverted, it must be 1, and it's not connected, so it's don't care. It looks like only one of them are used, so one of these negated, not negated. So anyway, A1, there's no gate on that one, so then we look at A1 negated, and there's one there. So this one must be off, therefore we must have A1 equals 1, and therefore A1 negated equals 0. So that's a 1, and so on. So you get you can make yourself a rule of thumb. Everywhere there's a connected to a negated, there's a 1, and everywhere there's non-negated connected to a non-negated, there's a 0. So you get 1 or 1, and here you get a 0. And if you and here's address 5. So you have in binary you have 0, 1, 2, 3. That's 4 bits. So that's 0 to 16, and then you have the next sort of page, if you want to call it that, or the next number, the hexadecimal number. It's not a page, it's the next hexadecimal number. that is 0, 1, or 5, 4 is 1, 0, so that's 2. So this number here is 2e. And what is 2e? And I don't know. So if you bring up the registers, you see that 2e at D0, this address decoder doesn't decode D0 because that's the purpose of the PLA in the Commodore. So anyway, that's color to Sprite 6. That's interesting. What did we see here again? Where is the color register? It's at K, so it's down here. Well, we are down here actually, so let's have a look at that in another scope. This is zooming out, you can see that we are actually down at the color register. You see? So that was a cool find though, to actually see an actual number that fits with the register. So I'm taking this a bit further though. I was looking for the raster, and I think I found it, because the raster is special because you have a counter that you don't have access to, but you have a raster that you have an access to. So, and what these modules are, before I go into that, is E and G. They are comparators for sprites, and they are not only comparators for sprites because you have the raster next to the counter. If you see here F, that's a vertical timing control. So, and there's a sorry, I'm rambling here, but vertical timing control, and there's some very interesting stuff. First time I read this, I just skimmed through it, but this part here is very important. The timing for the various chip functions, such as fetching data for the sprites, is done by combining a counter. Remember that? A counter. That's a very special register in hardware. So they're combining a counter and a ROM. The counter steps through the addresses of the ROM, and the contents of each ROM address drive the appropriate control lines. So then it's just a matter of finding, okay, now I'm pointing at it, is finding the counter and the ROM and the control lines, and then we know what's going on. So, and I'm not sure about that, but if you go into the core of this chip again, and this was the Sprite Comparator, a Sprite Comparator. I think it's more, it's like, you know, if you are on a line, if the VIC chip is on a single line, and the sprite is supposed to be painted at the middle of the screen. Let's say it's the first line of the sprite, because it comes in scan lines, you know. So if this is the vertical timing, then this chops away. Here you have the counter. So this is the vertical counter actually. And then each sprite has a register here. There are 8 registers, and whenever this counter matches this register, then you have like a then you have to start painting the actual sprite, or not you, the VIC chip. So yeah, so that's how I think it works, but I don't know if it's like that. So, but anyway, this is a counter, and they were talking about a counter that was a counter combining a counter and a ROM. The counter steps through the addresses of the ROM, and the contents of each ROM address drive the appropriate control lines. So let's go back again. So I think this is a ROM. There are more like this in here. So You have one down here. I think this is for the horizontal line. You see they look like each other. And all of these counter lines, they are propagating throughout. You can see one here and you can see one there. They are close to the ground plane here in the middle. And this is 1 bit. It's negated and non-negated. So it's just the way they do things. So yeah, so if we I'm putting my finger on it here because I'm going to scroll, but you can't see it. So yeah, so it goes through here, and okay, so you can see it down here anyway. It stopped here, so I got baffled. But okay, you see the yellow line? That's the data. So let's try another one. Try this one. It's right underneath data. And it makes sense also that it's close to data because it's comparing data in a way. So, and here you can see it stops. And yeah, here's the something that looked like another decoder. So I'm sorry, I think I will cut this out of the video anyway. Yeah, so these registers, they must have data, they must have clock inputs, and they must be able to load the data whenever a control line says so. So here is data bus 1 and here's 0, but let's focus on just 1 bit. So I just painted a yellow line here, so it goes here, and you can see something that looks like a crab, but that's just the symmetry, because they have put all the register back to back to save space, because you have the power net here. This is 5 volt. And yeah, and somewhere here you have ground. I think this is ground. Yeah, this is ground. You can see this large area here. So it's more efficient to do it in this way. So yeah, and back to that room. Do you see these lines that goes down here? These are pull-ups. So whenever there's something here pulling on it, then the whole line will be activated. Now I'm not sure how this room, or if it's a room anyway, works, but what I see is that whenever this counter is matching some key here, then these lines that goes down there, I think they are control lines. And the reason why I think they are control lines is because they go through this address bus here and down to something I have found. This is read and write, and this is control. So I believe that this vertical counter is going through a room, which makes this control lines, or they fire signals on the control bus at different times, and you know, the VIC chip has a fixed sequence of control signals or actions which it performs on every half cycle, I think, or if it's every cycle, I don't remember. But let's get to the interesting part. This here, this is a clock face. That was the first thing I looked at. This is some clock, making a non-overlapping clock from the actual clock input. And here you have different clocks, and they are super buffers. And you can see they are super buffers because they are large transistors. They are stacked like this. But the bottom one is the most important one, and you can see here that they have 2 lines. Everyone has 2 lines. So the next one, oops, sorry, I went too far. Yeah, they have these lines, and then you get up to the last one, and yeah, where is that one? I don't know. Anyway, so they have 2 phases, and the thing is, when you have sequential logics, let's say you want to move a bit from one register to another, you don't want these pulses to be overlapping, so they are non-overlapping. But however, this is just one pulse, so whenever that comes a pulse here, this register should either load or put data on the data bus if it's a read, or if it's a write, and the data that is on the bus, this is data bus 1, is going to be stored in here. So, and let's have a look at that. So data comes in here, but you can see there's already something in the way of this green, and yeah, I haven't looked at that so much yet, but it's a sort of I think that was the read-write. This is the read-write line. So if it's a read, then this one is on, so whatever is on this net will then be loaded out. So this part here will drive this line. But if it's a write, then I think I think this one is on, such as this part here is you see the contact there between the metal and the diffusion, or the green diffusion. It's called diffusion. It's the doped area that I talked about. Anyway, if that one is on, then you have a path here in there, which again has a metal that goes in here. So I think this part here can pull. Here you have ground. You can pull this point to ground, and if you pull this to ground, pull this to ground, and then you pull this to ground, and therefore this to ground. So you can drive the data bus in this way, I think. So how does this work then? Well, I do have to show you this as transistors, but I will shortly just show you. I don't know how this video will turn out. Anyway, let's say you have a 1 coming in here. Now, what you don't see here is that it's green and red. They are connected together with something called a buried contact. It's not shown here because I haven't put it in here, but if you look closely, you can actually see them in here. So let's be here. There you can see one. This is also one of those decoders, or actually this is a comparator, but this is the same principle as the address decoding that we looked at. It has a long net, and only one of these, or if these 2 are on at the same time, then it can pull this line down to ground. But then both must be on though. So it's the same principle. It's this is the way they compare in this comparator. Anyway, if you look closer, you can see there's a buried contact. Sometimes you can't see them because of the metal, but you can anticipate them, because if you look here, you see that there's an opening, so there's no contact. There's no point of having a contact here, because let's say the net was like this, and there's no point in having a net like this, because why would you want a transistor when the current can just flow around it? So no, it should be like this, such that you can control the current. And then if you look here, this gate or this poly material, it's not connected anywhere, so it must be connected somewhere. Well, then it must be connected to this net here. So this line up here, this data line, this drives this gate, which can pull this part down to ground. That means it can pull this gate down to ground, which again can pull this net down to ground, and this one doesn't pull to ground, but it can pass. So if this is on, this and this part is connected together. But what is pulling it up then? It's these ones that I talked about, this depletion mode. You can look at this like resistors, but it's not exactly a good idea right here, because if this network here goes low, then this one is still pulling, but since there's a buried contact here, if this one goes low, this green net, then also this red polysilicon here will also go low, and therefore you have another transistor connected to that. So it would help to show you a diagram, but I don't have the camera on right now, so so what's going on here? You have data here which drives this transistor, and therefore you have data down here, which then if this one is 1, then this one is 0. So it's inverted. So let's call this for D inverted. And therefore you also have D inverted on this line here. And therefore you have D here. Not D inverted, but D. But there's no pull up here, so except on this side out, but this transistor is a barricade for that. So anyway, so you have D inverted, and don't forget that there's a hidden or the buried contact here. So if this is D inverted, then you have D inverted on this line, this red line. So therefore this point here must be D again. Now here's the dilemma, or the clue. Look here, this one is on the same, and this one is also on the same. So you have, it sort of is biting itself. So you have one inverter which is driving another inverter, which again drives the first inverter. So what happens here is that if you get a 1 here, you get a 0, and a 0 here gets a 1, and then you have 1 again. So you get, it latches, and it sort of remembers it. That's how. So this is a memory cell then, and to change the state you have to push energy here, so you have to pull it low, and then since this was a 1, and this transistor is now forcing its net here to be 1, then you need to push energy in, and it takes a little bit of time, but it should be done within a clock cycle though. And then you can change the latch here, change the state, and all of this is timed with this clock signal that comes up here, so it's not done before the clock signal though. So yeah, so basically these two here are inverted of each other. So this is D, remember this is D, and because you have D here that we talked about, and this here is D inverted. So what is the point of that? So you have stored a register value here, 1 bit of register value here, and then you want to compare it to the counter, which is out here. So this is a bit where this is the positive and this is negative, or the opposite way, I don't remember. I think this one down here is the positive and this is the negative of the same number. So that means if this counter has a value of 1, then there's 1 here and a 0 up here. So let's say the counter is 1. Do we have a match? Okay, so you can see that these little I don't want to look like something else anyway, like snakes. These are connected to the counter. So if you have counter equals 1 here, then this gate is on and this gate is off. So we don't have to care about this one right now. So this one is on. And let's say we have 1 here, then we should have 1 here also. But we don't care about this because this one is closed. So let's look. If we have 1 here, then we must have 0 here. So if this is 0, then this part here is not dragged down to ground, because then this transistor is off. So therefore, if there's a 1 here and a 1 here, then this there's no leakage from ground to is outside of this comparator. So this large long net is not affected, and that's the point there. If the value doesn't match, if any of these bits in this register, which is located up here, it's 8 bits I think. Yeah, sure, it's 8 bits. It's 8 bits registers. If any of them is not equal to the counter, then it only takes one of them to pull this long line going down here. You can see it goes all the way down here to a pull-up, and you can also see that over here it's the same deal for another register. You have a pull-up there. Other things you can see is that yeah, okay, so no, don't want to confuse you. So now let's say the counter is 0, but we still have a 1 in this register, so therefore there's a mismatch. Okay, so if the counter is 0, then you have a 0 down here, so then this is off. So therefore you can ignore this, because then you can't pass any ground here. But then this part must be 1 then, so this one is on, because if this is 0, then this is 1. Right, so now we know that if the counter is 0 and the date is 1, we know in theory that we are talking that this counter and sprite register is not matching. So let's say we have 1 here, you have 1 here, and therefore this one is on, and you have a 1 here and this is on, so you have a path from ground up to this long net. So this long net is now pulled low. So that means something is not matching. And we can also follow this net and see what happens. I think you can see it down here. Okay, actually this register I don't know what does. So, but the most fun part was today, because I found a raster register. The raster register is OD01 12, I think 12, OD12. Let's have a look. You have DO12, that's the raster counter. So you can set that value, and therefore you will, if I remember correctly, when you set the raster, you can get an, if you have set other registers also, I think, you can get an interrupt. You can make the VIC chip fire an interrupt for the CPU. So, here you have a raster. So let's say the address lines, they match this code, and therefore we know that the CPU wants to access the raster. And here you also have a back-to-back decoders. So, and this is the ground. It's the same thing that we have over here, down here. You had ground in the middle, and then you had a pull-up, and then none of these gates must be on for this part to be active. So it's the same principle over here for the raster. So the code was DO12, because this 0010, so which means this is 1, 2. So anyway, rambling again. So there's a lot going on here. I honestly haven't looked too closely. Other that you must remember that you have a vertical and a horizontal comparator here. So the thing that I have done here, you can see that this is Sprite 0, which is the X direction, and this is also Sprite 0, but it's the Y direction. So you can see every other is having the register on top or the bottom here. So so I know that this is 5 volts, so it's pulling this raster line, or address decoder is pulled up if it's active. So something is going on here, and I believe the raster is here. This is the raster register, 8-bit raster register. And why would you have that on this side? Well, remember, you have a counter, and this counter you can't access with a CPU, but you can set this raster register to a certain value such that you get a RQ request. So I was thinking, this RQ request doesn't really happen. So we talked a lot about that. If the register does match, then all of these are off, or there are no one pulling this long net down to ground. And I was thinking, okay, what happens if that happens? Then this one is on, because there's a match in all of these 8 bits. All of these 8 bits are matching the counter. So therefore we should have something flipping. So you can see this buried contact down here. So there's something coming from this register, this comparator. It goes down here, and here, and here. And just bear with me. So let's follow it. This is through all the sprite registers, the X and Y. You can see it goes up here and up here. So, okay, so that doesn't tell us so much right now because we don't know what this is. But remember that it's over dB0. So let's make another strategy here. Remember it was here. Okay. Let's get down to the IRQ and see where that goes. Okay, so you have IRQ and it goes over here. And remember, the VIC is supposed to drive this one to tell the CPU something. It's not the CPU driving this one, so yep, this is the driver, so that's correct. And you can see the gate is here, so let's follow that one. It stops up here and it's via over here. I think this must be the nerdiest video on YouTube. So this line must be driven by something, and this is the driver transistor. You can see, I think this is ground, so when this is active, then you ground is this line here that we followed is pulled to ground, and somewhere else it must be pulled up. I don't know where. But anyways, so what we do then, we follow this one, so this one is driving this one. So let's just continue. Let's not be so focused on what is positive, negative, and details. So just follow the signal. Okay, check that out. We are here. And the signal that comes from the register, from the raster, is here. Check that out. They are so close. So I will bet you one bottle of Coca-Cola that something here will then connect these two together. There's a connection here though. This is the line that goes down to the raster. So yeah, so I think something here. This looks like registers also. So maybe this is something to do with the control lines, because you can switch off the interrupt, you know. So something in there has to be. There must be some logic that connects these two lines together, or not, because if it was permanently together, we'll fire interrupts all the time when there was a match between the counter and the raster. So yes, that's what I've been doing, and I haven't talked so much about it because I'm not sure what I want to make of this yet. So, and it's a big task, you know. So, but right now I just think it's fun to follow signals, and yeah. I'm not sure if there was more things wanted to look at. I have looked at all this color data which goes in here. So these are individual bits. This is shift registers. These bits, they can be copied and shifted. You shift one data in from the data bus, and whatever was here is then moved over here. But then this one is erased, so it must be done in the correct fashion though. So yeah, so you have two clock phases that take care of that. And you can see them down here. These are non-overlapping clock phases, so at one moment this one is on and goes off again, and then this one goes on and off again. So yeah, so that the data isn't erased or corrupted in any way. So yeah, so this is very difficult for me. I can't see what's going on under here. So if I switch off what I have drawn here, this looks like much work, and it is also, but remember that there's symmetry here, so there's a lot of copy-paste, so it's not as bad as it looks. So, but sorry, I can't get this. I have looked at other pictures also that are easier, so yeah, I think maybe we have to wait for this metal to be polished away, if someone does that sometime. So yeah, and I also followed this video matrix, as they call it. Just wanted to know where the data went. So it was a dead end for me. So yeah, anyway, so now we have looked at how this works, also how this address bus is decoded. And it's not accurate because I say A0. That's address bus bit 0, but it's not accurate because if you look at A0 here, you can see switch on the poly again. Here comes the input. This is the output though. So this is driving this point, but if it's not used as an output, then there's an input. And this first here, this is a stupid transistor. It doesn't do anything. It's an ESD protection. It's a poor one. It's doesn't really help that much, I think. That's what I read in the PLA dissected document anyway. But what you see that the signal is continuing in here, and you have ground. So therefore you have inverted signal here, and you have the pull-ups to 5 volt, which is this net. So you have signal, inverted signal, and then the signal is supposed to go further here and then invert it back again, so you get the positive signal again. That was a bit advanced, so but I did skip a part here, and I did it on purpose. So the signal comes in here, and this becomes a transistor, so you get the inverted signal, and then it must pass this path, and then it's inverted back again. And this pass transistor, it's connected to the CAS or RAS. So when I say A0, it's not really just A0, it's A0 and CAS RAS. I think you can see it follows down here. Yeah, you see the CAS there. It's timing with the memory, and it makes sense because when there's a access, then memory access, you only want address when, or if you're going to decode anything, you will only do that. You will only put data on this address bus on the decoder when there's data on the bus, on the data bus, because there's no point loading registers without data on the bus. Oh, maybe I should show you that before I close the video. I think I will just name this video Ramble because I haven't prepared so very well. So yeah, so this is here's the data. Oh, I showed you that. Okay. I thought I haven't showed you the data that went through here and such. So yeah, but I have done that. So these registers, they get data, and they get clock, they get counter, and they have a comparator. So a little bit fun though now to know that this is like a memory element, and then this is like a comparator. So if you want to try this yourself, I can suggest that you draw like a phantom diagram of transistors. What you do, you put a number, not like this anyway. Sorry, this is a bad example. Let's go over here. So what you do, I have something called draft here though. So you put like a number on every transistor. So let's say this is the first one. So the computer is super slow because there's so many polygons. Anyway, you put numbers on all the transistors, this one also. And then you try to make a diagram. And it will probably look very bad to begin with, but then you can clean it up. And then you can see and try and make a logic block diagram, or you can convert transistor level to logic diagram, so to logic gates. And if you do that here, you will see that you have like an inverter and an inverter, and they are connected back to back. So the output is driving the gate, which again, the output of that one again drives another gate. So it sort of locks itself together. You can also see that this clock signal is gating the action here. So should only change whenever there's a clock. And yeah, and you will also see that this is network here. This is the output of a wired OR gate, where this OR gate is 0 if these two are high or these two are high at the same time. Wait, it's not an OR, it's an OR gate. So, and these are ANDed. So AND this, then NOR. Yeah. Okay. Was there anything more I want to say? I think that's correct. I think that's it, and that's a couple of weeks of looking at stuff. So maybe someone gets the interest in looking at it. So maybe I should have talked a bit more about transistors and stuff, but yeah, maybe it gets a bit dull. So, yep. So that's this video, and thank you for watching. Bye.